Sunday, 7th of June, 1992. Tadcaster, North Yorkshire. In the early hours of the morning, the sound of gunfire disturbs the pristine quiet of the countryside. A policeman lies dying, and his partner is severely wounded at the hands of terrorists. The two assailants have sped away in their car, and are now on the run. What had happened to disturb the peace of that tranquil Sunday morn? Join us, as today Descent into Darkness examines the circumstances that led to the murder of PC Glenn Goodman. Background. Glenn Thomas Goodman was born in 1955 in Sherburn-in-Elmet to parents Brian and Margaret. He had previously served with the RAF and had applied to join the regular force in Cleveland, but in the meantime decided to join the North Yorkshire Force's Special Constables, completing his training, most of which was given by my own auntie, Helena Richmond, only a few months before the day that would take his life, receiving the collar number PC-25. He had a wife named Fiona and an infant son called Thomas. The Special Constabulary was founded in 1831 and consists of part or full-time volunteer police officers who work alongside the full-time police force. Unlike the more modern community support officers, special constables are trained to the same standard as regular coppers, carry the same equipment, and have full arrest powers. Every police force in the country utilises specials to augment their operations. Paul Dingus Magee was born on the 30th of January 1948 in Ballymurphy, Belfast. He joined the Belfast Brigade of the Provisional Irish Republican Army, or PRIA, or simply the IRA, or Provos, and had been arrested for illegal possession of a firearm in 1971. For this he was imprisoned at the infamous Long Kesh, now Maze Prison, which has become well hated throughout the Troubles due to IRA prisoners not being granted political status, but criminal. This fact would lead to several so-called dirty protests in which the prisoners would refuse to use the toilet and smear excrement all over the walls, and of course for the hunger strike of several PIRA members led by Bobby Sands, who would die after a grueling 66 days of starvation in 1981, no doubt a topic for a future video. Magee was released by the late 70s and went straight back to active IRA service, becoming a part of a four-man cell known as the M60 Gang, due to their use of an M60 machine gun in their raids. On the 9th of April 1980, the gang was able to lure a unit of the Royal Ulster Constabulary down the Stewartstown Road, where they ambushed them, wounding two and killing PC Stephen McGill. Later, the following May, the gang had taken over a house on the Antrim Road and were prepared to carry out another attack. However, their presence had been betrayed, and information sent to the Forces Research Unit, or FRU, the counter-intelligence cell attached to the British forces, who dispatched an 8-man patrol of the SAS, Britain's most elite regiment. 5 SAS members took up positions at the front of the house, whilst 3 went round the back. The gang opened fire on the rear guard, and killed Captain Herbert Westmacott, who would become the highest-ranking officer killed during the Troubles. Magee attempted to escape, but was captured as he tried to get into the gang's van. The rest of them were in the house, and after a tense standoff and backup arriving, they surrendered. In all honesty, they were lucky to survive, as the SAS do not F around. Just ask the terrorists that took the Iranian embassy in 1980. Oh wait, you can't, 'cause they're dead. Anyway, Magee managed to escape from the Crumlin Road jail whilst awaiting trial by taking a prison officer and solicitor hostage, and then going on the run. He was then later captured in Era by the Garda's Special Branch after he had first evaded them when he turned up to a commemoration of the Irish rebel and folk hero Wolfe Tone in Bodenstown, Kildare. He was sentenced to 10 years imprisonment in 1982, being released in 1989 with a view to honouring an extradition warrant to hand him over to the north to serve his life sentence for the murder of Captain Westmacott. But Magee was able to escape once more and fled across the Irish Sea to mainland Britain. Here, he would join with another active service unit, being paired up with Michael O'Brien. It would be these two that would take part in what was to come next. The fatal day. In the early morning light of Sunday the 7th of June 1992, PC-25 Glenn Goodman on his first night shift and his patrol partner PC Sandy Kelly were patrolling in a Panda car around the outskirts of the town of Tadcaster, just off the A64 road. They spotted a Ford Sierra on the slip road of the main road. Something about the vehicle aroused their suspicions, and so they decided to have a word with them out of routine. They pulled the car over, and Glenn got out to question the occupants while Sandy stayed in the car to note down the vehicle details and radio it in. When Glenn asked the driver what the purpose of his journey was, the reply came back with a weak excuse about trying to find somewhere in Leeds, no doubt also giving fake names. As the conversation drew on, it was obvious that Glenn wasn't buying the story, and so O'Brien and Magee decided to act. Magee brandished an AK-47 assault rifle and opened fire on both officers. Recoiling from the gunfire, Glenn and Sandy reached for their radios and called a 10-9, North Yorkshire's code for officers in immediate danger. Both Glenn and Sandy were hit with bullets and fell to the ground, Sandy being particularly lucky as one projectile ricocheted off his radio handset, saving his life from what would have almost certainly been a fatal headshot. Magee and O'Brien sped away in the Sierra, in a cloud of dust and hot rubber. The Sierra was sighted and pursued by PC Mark Whitehouse and WPC Susan Larkin as far as the village of Burton Salmon. Here the Sierra pulled over once more, and Magee peppered the Panda car with gunfire, but thankfully neither officer was injured. Magee and O'Brien then abandoned the car, and then went to ground. Both PCs Goodman and Kelly were rushed to Leeds St James Hospital to tend to their wounds, but sadly, Glenn would die a few hours later. He was 37 years old. On a personal note, my uncle, who wishes to remain nameless, was on duty at the time of the shooting and heard the shots and Glenn's panicked calls for backup over the radio. Sadly, he could do nothing, as he was stationed all the way over in Easingwold at the time, around 22 miles away. I cannot imagine how harrowing that must have been for him, knowing that there was nothing that he could do. Pursuit and capture. The police quickly gathered many armed police and sent them into the Yorkshire countryside on a huge manhunt for both assailants. Magee and O'Brien had hidden themselves away for 4 days in an isolated culvert before breaking cover and heading into West Yorkshire. Thankfully, their freedom would be short-lived, as they would both be arrested by West Yorkshire police in Pontefract. A trial soon followed. O'Brien was found guilty of attempted murder, whilst Magee was found guilty of the murder of Special Constable Glenn Goodman, and 3 other counts of attempted murder on the 31st of March 1993. But of course, the ever-slippery Magee and 5 other prisoners managed to escape once again, this time from HMP Whitemoor on the 9th of September the next year. They had managed to have some guns smuggled into the prison, and their escape method was nothing short of farcical. They scaled the walls with knotted bedsheets. You literally can write it, and many have. But they were recaptured after a long chase. The trial for the escape attempt was declared a mistrial due to the Evening Standard publishing photos of them and calling them terrorists, which prejudiced the trial. From here, Magee was transferred to HMP Belmarsh, where he staged a dirty protest in 1996. This was because the prison had installed glass partitions into the visitor room, no doubt to stop anything else being smuggled in. The judiciary got around to trying the 6 escapees again 4 months later in January of 1997. This time, the judge was forced to dismiss the case because of the earlier prejudicial publication. Sadly, he had no choice in the matter. Release and legacy. The 5th of May 1998 saw Magee transferred over to the Republic of Ireland to complete his sentence, but by the end of the year he would be a free man. The Good Friday Agreement, a landmark treaty between the IRA, the British government, and the Irish Parliament, the Dáil Éireann, that granted concessions, most notably the release of prisoners held for charges committed during the Troubles in exchange for the IRA agreeing to disarm in the presence and to the satisfaction of UN weapons inspectors, and ceasing of all hostilities. A power-sharing devolved government would be set up in Stormont, allowing the IRA's political arm, Sinn Féin, into the halls of power, alongside those that they once considered bitter enemies. Despite his various crimes, in the year of 2000, Paul Magee was granted the royal prerogative of mercy, essentially pardoning him for his crimes that he had committed during the Troubles, including the murder of Captain Westmacott. This pardon was extended to 2 other members of the M60 gang also. This means that all those men are perfectly free to re-enter Northern Ireland. A dose of freedom not granted to those men whose lives he took. The then Secretary of Northern Ireland and all-round lizard, Peter Mandelson, said of the release, "It is clearly anomalous to pursue the extradition of people who appear to qualify for early release under the Good Friday Agreement scheme, and who would, on making a successful application to the Sentence Review Commissioners, have little, if any, of their original prison sentence to serve." Paul Magee was an incredibly dangerous and calculating man, able to weed his way out of many situations that others would have considered secure. This was no doubt helped by his contacts in the IRA, who, despite their technical disadvantage, could always rely on their network of loyal followers. But, like all terrorists, he was a murdering bastard, and I believe he should have rotted for what he did. Civilized nations have no place for violence. Glenn Goodman was an unpaid volunteer who was killed in the line of duty, selflessly protecting and serving his community without fear or favour, only to be gunned down by a pair of cowards. Poor wee Thomas Goodman, who is not much younger than yours truly, was too young to remember his father, whose life was cut so tragically short. But I hope that this video will at least serve to pay some sort of tribute to Glenn's life and selfless sacrifice. I hope that PC Goodman's family have managed to come to some kind of solace and closure, and that Glenn's soul is resting in everlasting love and peace. Stand down, officer. You've done your share. Thank you for watching this video. I do hope you found it informative and interesting. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe to DID to see even more fantastic content, and check out my back catalogue to find even more great videos just like this one. I know it was only a short one today compared to my usual efforts, but sadly, there really isn't that much info out there. Fortunately, I was able to draw on the extensive knowledge of my cousin Jim, who was invaluable in writing this script. Cheers, our kid. What do you think of today's case? Do you agree with Magee's release? Let me know in the comments, as I always love to hear what you have to say. If you wish to do so, you can support DID on Patreon or become a channel member to get early access to all my new videos, or if you prefer to give a one-off donation, you can do so via the Super Thanks button. And if you want to hear more from YouTube's foremost silky-voiced narrator, head on over to my alternate channel DID Reads, where I post things like poetry, short stories, and famous speeches. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves, and I shall see you on our next descent into darkness.